Welcome to an episode of r/slash malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Sit back and enjoy these stories, and at the end of this video, make sure to like and comment, and definitely subscribe if you have not already done so. Enjoy. And this story is posted by u/highguy852. I would like ice on the bottom. I used to work in a cafe and diner as a waitress. My job is your typical food runner and sometimes bus duty if we are understaffed. Always. Anyway, one day we had a college group who most were really nice, but one in particular was the clown. He started off with dumb jokes. When I was writing up orders, he responded with, "Food, please," or "Cheeseburger without cheese." When asking for drinks, he responded with, "A nice cup of water with ice at the bottom," with some of his buddies telling him to shut up and waving me an apology. Well, no problem, buddy. You can thank my 7th grade science professor warning us not to lick metal poles when it was cold or it'll stick like in the movies. I went back to fulfill this specific request to the T. I grabbed one of our milkshakes tins, gave it a quick rinse, and packed ice cubes at the bottom. I crushed some additional ice and added them, allowing the entire thing to form one solid cold clump, and being cold enough, stuck it to the wet interior of the tin. I returned triumphantly, plopping down the tin in front of the fool. Water, ice at the bottom, as per dear customer's request. At first, he was confused as he was the only one with the metal tin. Then I hear him silently mutter, "Holy sh!" but was cut off by the rest of his group cheer in disbelief that I have conquered his quest. He and the rest of his buddies even took a few pictures of the cup and before leaving slipped me a personal tip as a thank you. Since then, our diner special was ice at the bottom as a running joke, and everybody new gets a kick out of it when they see it. And this story is posted by u/Effity Jeffity. Company travel, always a rich vein for this sub. I was in IT tech. This company had factories in 3 corners of the UK, Southampton, Newcastle upon Tyne, and Belfast, as well as more factories and offices around the globe. Being the IT base in Southampton, we quite regularly have to fly up to Newcastle or over to Belfast to fix an issue or just for routine maintenance on their kit. Often the higher-up managers would be making the same journeys, so we'd arrange with their PA to share the taxi from the office to the airport, make sure we're on the same flight, then share the taxi at the other end to the factory there. These were executive taxis, long wheelbase BMW 7 Series and Merc S-Class usually. At the destination, there'd be a man with a little sign for the exec who grab his and her bags and take us to the car. All very nice. If the visit required an overnight stay, they put us up in the same 4-star hotel as the execs as it was near the factory, on an industrial estate, and again, we could share taxis. This was a pretty sweet and sensible deal. Until the company was owned by a larger group who decided on a top-down edict that all job grades below exec level didn't get business class travel, didn't get exec taxis, no 4-star hotels. We could also only eat at the hotel's restaurant unless we were entertaining guests from another company. Obviously, this was going to affect us as an IT team, so we tried to push back on it. Not happening. You have to follow the letter of the law. The PAs, we had one for IT as well as the couple who worked for the execs, got their heads together and came up with the plan. First thing was, our flights had to change. We were previously using an airline which operated small aircraft in a business class only configuration. They left Southampton at around 8 a.m., meaning we'd arrive in Newcastle ready to start the day's work. The return flight departed at 18:30ish, meaning we could leave at 5 and get home in time for dinner. The only other option was a commercial airline. This flight left mid-morning, and because it wasn't business class, it took longer to get through security, etc., meaning we had to present at the airport at 9ish for the 11:15 flight. Not arriving in Newcastle until lunchtime. Wasted half a day working right there. Rather than sharing the executive taxi to the airport, with which we had an account, we were staying on the street and hail a Hackney, which turned out to cost nearly twice the pre-booked exec option. The return flight departed at 15:30, so unless you only had an hour's work to do, you had to now stay the night somewhere. We were only allowed to book from one of two chains, Premier Inn and Travelodge. Turns out the Premier Inn in the middle of Newcastle costs more than the 4-star place out on the industrial estate. Plus now I've got places to go out and a much longer taxi ride from the office. As anyone who stayed in one knows, these chain hotels have generally crap but hugely overpriced restaurants. I can see cheap options which I'd be fine with, like Nando's or ZZ from my room, but no, I have to go to the on-site restaurant and order a 25-pound steak. My favorite trip was one where I had to take a new server up there. The company wouldn't pay for it to be couriered as it was too heavy. They wouldn't pay for the baggage allowance. Policy was only cabin baggage on the commercial flights. They would have taken it no problems on the other airline. So I had to drive. Company standard was to pay 45p a mile for the first 10,000 business miles in a tax year. I recently bought a cheap diesel that would do 70 plus miles per gallon if I kept it below 60 miles per hour. And as I'd be driving on company time, why not? 350 miles each way cost me a little over 50 pounds on diesel at that time, and I got paid 315 pounds in expenses for doing it. The airfare on the business class jet would have been around 250 pounds return. Our departmental PA worked out that travel as a whole was now costing the IT dep roughly 3 times what it used to under the old system. And that's not counting the missed hours when we could have been working. Of course, nothing ever came of it because the people who made these decisions never bother looking into the impact of them, or probably never even get a report that will highlight it. From our point of view, it meant a problem that could be sorted in a single day now took at least 2, and we were away from the office a lot more. And this story is posted by u/terahex. My dad says he'll pick me up at dark. Well, he hasn't picked me up, so it must not be dark. This happened about 10 years ago now, and I have a good chuckle about it every time I pass the place in my car. I'm a pretty meek guy, so this is probably the only rebellious thing I did in my entire teenage life. My dad owns a farm, and being his son, this meant that I had a job when I was a kid, whether I liked it or not. Mostly I understood this, but that didn't mean I had to like it. I resented having to spend entire days of summer vacation, dawn to dusk, in a tractor when it came time to harvest alfalfa, which we did 4 times between spring and fall. Basically, imagine a teenager with ADHD forced to sit in one place for 14 hours, and you'll understand how it felt. Honestly, if I wasn't a total introvert, I might have snapped sooner. So anyway, it's the second day of harvest, and it's getting to be late in the afternoon. I spent about 20 hours total in a haybind by this point over the past few days, and I asked my dad which fields to cut next, and I asked him when I'll be done, hoping, in vain, that I can leave and go play video games or whatever. This is where the titular line comes in. I'll pick you up at dark. Little does he know that my little teenage heart is clenching with righteous anger for all this wasted paid time. So, several hours pass, and I'm understandably getting pretty irritable. It starts getting dark, and guess what? No sign of my dad. At the time, it was becoming a bit of a recurring joke in my family about how my dad was always late, so I knew I was in for a long haul. Then it occurred to me, and the malicious compliance begins. My dad said he'll pick me up at dark, and he wasn't picking me up, so that must mean it wasn't dark yet. And what don't you need if it's not dark outside? That's right, headlights. So I continue going back and forth on this wide, empty field, squinting as the light continues to fade after sunset, and stubbornly refuse to turn on the headlights. I can easily see the edges of the field, of course, but everything else is blending in pretty well. I start purposely and accidentally leaving some shark fins, which are what we call the mistakes that haybind operators leave between rows when they don't get any alfalfa. A few small shark fins per field are fine, even expected, but these are on a whole new level. My dad shows up after about 30 minutes of total darkness. I forget our exact conversation, but I do remember the result. After asking me why I didn't turn on the lights, and me telling him why, he laughed uproariously, and I still remember it fondly to this day. I never did get any punishment. I'm not even sure he understood the extent of the missed alfalfa. It was dark after all, and it was hard to see in the dim moonlight, but whatever, it was just a few rows. I, however, like to think he was a little proud of me because I was the type of teenager who never got into mischief. I asked him about it recently, and unfortunately, he has no memory of the incident. Oh well. I, however, will probably remember this little bit of malicious compliance fondly for the rest of my life. It might have been pretty insignificant and motivated by laziness, but it was also the first time I really stood up for myself against an authority figure. And this story is posted by u/renticle. Must find the reservation? Okay. Last week, me and my friend went out to eat for the first time in 3+ months. There was a short line before being seated, just one other couple before us. The man insisted that he had a reservation, but the waitress couldn't find his name in her tablet, and immediately he got loud and angry. The waitress suggested that maybe the man had called the wrong number because there is another restaurant 50 kilometers from here with the same name, and sometimes people mix up the two of them when doing a Google search. She was very polite and calm about it, but the man got even angrier and accused her of trying to shift the blame, said she couldn't do her job, blah, blah. The waitress tried to say that they still had some open tables, and if he could wait a moment, she would go and check, but the man kept speaking loudly over her and saying that she must find his reservation. So eventually, the waitress called the owner, and the owner took the man and his companion to one side so they wouldn't block the line while she tried to figure out what was going on. Now, me and my friend didn't have a reservation either because I'm a total scatterbrain and I forgot to call ahead. I told the waitress as much and asked if there was any chance they'd be able to fit us in. She told me not to worry, there were still tables available and we were seated within a minute. Our table was not near the entrance, so we didn't see what happened next, but the same waitress brought us our coffees at the end of dinner, so we asked her if everything was okay. Me and my friend had been talking about it and we were appalled at the man's behavior. The waitress told us not to worry, that the owner had let him stew for a bit, and then she called the other restaurant with the same name. The manager of that other restaurant had confirmed they had a reservation under his name. The man was very annoyed at being proved wrong and asked to be seated since they had been waiting a long time. The owner said that unfortunately all tables were full. Man, but earlier you had empty tables. I saw it. Owner: yes, but you told the staff you didn't want to be seated. You wanted us to find your reservation. We have found your reservation. It's for a restaurant in another city. In the meantime, other people have come in and all the tables are full. We have no seats left. The man didn't take it well, but the bartender, a huge giant of a man, was standing nearby, so he scampered off in rage, swearing he was never coming back. I think everyone in that restaurant will be happy if he keeps that promise. These were 4 great stories, so we definitely thank you for listening, and do us a huge favor, comment, like, share, and definitely subscribe for sure so you'll be able to get more of the reminders for new videos that come out in the future. Have yourselves an incredible day. This has been TNA Top Notch Audio.